to move into our next session, which includes preparing students for life after secondary school. What about the students' lives after secondary school? When they graduate, will they be ready for that next step? And is it the educator's role to prepare them? Our final speakers of the summit will take a look at this subject and think about the future. Our moderator is going to be Dr. Aderonke Adejuyigbe, and our speaker is going to be Dr. Dorren Myrie. And with that, I will ask Dr. Adejuyigbe to come on and tell us a bit about herself and introduce our speaker. Thank you so much.
So welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Aderonke Adejuyigbe from Southern California. I'm a tired advocate for my sister who has developmental disabilities. I have over 30 years of experience in social work and human services and specializing in intellectual and developmental disabilities, Medicaid Waiver programs, disability support, and services coordination. I am also very much passionate about spreading awareness about inclusion, self-determination, and person-centered practices. So for some fun things that I enjoy doing is actually reading, traveling, engaging in philanthropic activities, and professional networking. I'm excited to moderate this session because this session is going to focus on how we can prepare students for life after secondary education. Today, we're joined by two outstanding panelists who bring unique insights on how they can, we can better equip students for future undertaking after secondary education. Together, we will explore how educators, schools, and communities at large can help students transition successfully to life beyond secondary education. You guys ready?
Yes.
Yeah, so our first panelist is Daniel Roeder. He is the Chief Academic Officer for David C. Foundation, an education specialist and advocate for mental health and universal design for learning to meet the needs of all learners. He is also a music composer and performer who is passionate about helping students to learn through music. Welcome, Daniel. And our second panelist is Dr. Dorren Myrie. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. And if I did not, I'm sorry, Dr. Dorren. She is an author of a book titled Sundiata, the Self-Determined King. Dr. Myrie is an expert in self-determination practices, and she's also a passionate advocate for culturally responsive learning and social emotional learning. She serves as an assistant professor of special education at Jackson State University, bringing extensive experience from her work in K-12 education. Dr. Myrie is deeply committed to advancing educational practices that support students with disabilities. Welcome, welcome. So our wonderful panelists, they have a presentation first, and after that presentation, then we will go straight to questions. Are you ready?
Let's go. Very excited. So I just want to make sure you guys can see the presentation on your screen, right? You can see it? Okay, perfect. Yes, yeah, because great, awesome. So I just want to, we're going to start a little different because this is the end of a really long summit. And I think we can give ourselves kind of a pat on the back for a big global discussion. We're going to have some engagement from the audience here. And we're going to do this in a very special way. This is through Nearpod. If you want to join us here, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine too, because I'm going to show the whole presentation on the screen. But there is a way for you, speaking of inclusion, to join us here on Nearpod. So you can go to I'll type it in with you, join.nearpod.com. And then it'll take you to a page that looks just like this. And you're going to put in the code if you want to join. If you don't, you can just watch the presentation. A45C, oops, wrong computer. A45C 5CS. And that code, if you don't get it right now, that's okay too. It'll be on the top of your screen throughout the whole presentation. You just have to Google Nearpod, near not far, and pod, I always say like the pod people. So we're gonna join the lesson, and it starts us with this really cool drawing activity that is very inclusive. So you can touch the screen, and you don't have to sign in, you don't have to create an account. You can just say, hey, I want to be a guest, but I'm going to say, yes, this is me. I've been here before. So the question is, we're going to draw together. How are you feeling? And this is something that I do for students where I give them a yellow circle. Many people might see an emoji, but you look at the bottom of your screen, you have all these little buttons right here where we can actually add text, we can add a shape, we can add a picture. I'm gonna do a star emoji. And I like to do this. Ooh, there's one that's a cyclops. That's cool. So I'm gonna pick that one. That's how I'm gonna fill my circle. But guess what? You can write poetry. You can record can dictate to it. However, your assistive technology that we talked about earlier, it can interface right here, which is really cool. And so you can do this in this, there's a lot of different apps like this. This one is particularly, I like it because it's free. There's a free version of some of the best tools, but you can also do it with Post-its. You can say, how are you feeling? Draw a picture, or how are you feeling? However that assistive technology is able to interface with the class, this is a perfect moment to just get a snapshot of how the whole class is feeling. And then you just hit submit at the end. And at the end of this presentation, if we have time, I'm really curious to see what this looks like. We'll get to see these all together. And so this is how I want to start this presentation, that we need to see the humans in the room. And that came up when I was talking with Dr. Stephen, and it was so incredible how much synergy there is with his presentation, and this presentation where we're looking at post-secondary plans. I mean, what is life after K-12 look like? What does transition look like? So this post-secondary preparation, here we are. And oops, sorry, I'm gonna go back. I hopefully didn't, I forgot to put it in student pace mode, which means if you want to still draw your picture, you can do that. So I just want to honor that it takes a different amount of time for other folks to do things, so I can move on in the presentation, and I'm going to just move on my screen. You will see, if you're in the Nearpod, you can see these different arrows. We can go back or forward. You can navigate it at your own pace. So we're talking about this post-secondary preparation and taking a global perspective. There's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, thinking globally as we have a worldwide workplace. And number two, thinking globally, we have a whole student in front of us that they are a whole person that we need to honor, every single whole person that comes into our classroom as teachers. My background is in teaching special education, but now I work for the David Z Foundation, and I get to work in classrooms all over the world, and I get to see how this plays out in embracing the whole child. And so that's why we're having this global conversation. And so when I was talking with Dr. Myrie about how are we going to frame this? There's so many pitfalls and rabbit holes we can go into, where we're getting into the minutia of legislation, of conservatorships, of programs, of these very specific things. But when we think globally as a planet and as a child at the same time, we can really answer 6 different questions that we're going to be talking about. But and that's I'll give you a preview: who, what, when, where, why, and how. So within those 6 questions, there's this movement that we have a student that comes to us. maybe at, wherever we're meeting them in their educational career. There's a lot of this I do, as a teacher, we're modeling, we're showing, we're building a classroom, we're building an environment. And so there's that I do, like that modeling that teachers do, mixed with this aspiration of a child that comes in with curiosity and wonder and the yearning to be learning, right? Every student comes to school on their first days like that, because it's a new place. Just thinking neuroscientifically, anytime you enter a new place, curiosity is the first thing that goes off in our brain. So that leads to our aspirations. We have these aspirations that come at the same time we are meeting these students. And then the first challenge to those aspirations sometimes, or the first way we can really make a system work flawlessly and fluidly, is looking at access. So we have aspiration that can be mitigated sometimes by access. Is that aspiration going to be something that a student can achieve? And then, that's once we get to this this agency, that's how we want to send them out the door of school into their life, with this gradual release of responsibility. I do, we do, together we're learning, you do. That's, just kind of looking at where Bloom and Maslow meet. So here's just, a couple other things that we think of as educators. And Dr. Myrie, sorry I'm going into these kind of extravagant visuals, but I really want to make sure this is a global conversation. Looking at education, a lot of us globally look to Maslow and Bloom, which were two ideas that can sometimes really be in harmony, but sometimes can really rub against each other. And we get this idea of Maslow versus Bloom. Maslow, we're talking about that whole child. What do they need to succeed? And Bloom, we're talking about what do they need to learn? What is this educational enrichment that goes from just hearing something to remembering it, to being able to analyze it, and then apply it and synthesize it, and then eventually create something. And so we've kind of got this like Maslow versus Bloom. We've got a couple of pyramids going on where, they can be sometimes at odds with each other. But what we can do is we can flip that Bloom pyramid, and we can really focus on, that creativity that we can bring to the classroom. We can focus on allowing for that aspiration the student came in with to be the thing we spend the most time with, because then we can tell if they can remember something, if they can understand it, if they can apply it, analyze, evaluate, but then create something. Creation takes agency, and that's the you do that they're going to have as they go into post-secondary life. So if we can really focus in on these, the physiological needs, that's, the base of Maslow's pyramid. I'm creating a safe environment for you to learn and thrive and succeed. I have supports, I have accommodations, I have modifications, but then together we're creating a pathway for you to be your best you. So I just wanted to offer a resource and then pass the mic to Dr. Myrie to launch us into our discussion of who, what, when, where, why, and how. This is, if you're in the Nearpod, and I'm sure in the post email, we can send this Nearpod presentation to folks so you can have these resources. You don't have to worry about them. But this is a resource called neurodiversitynetwork.net. I am a graduate of Chico State University in California, and this was developed there. And it's just an incredible host of resources that is aimed at three populations, really the students, the education professionals, and employers. And then, within the employers, we also have post-secondary training options like technical schools and universities. So this is just through a few different lenses. Here's some places that we can just go to start some conversations and to look globally at what this looks like. And the last resource is this combination of universal design and social emotional learning. And so this is I'm getting all the really academic stuff out of the way, but this is just a really great roadmap. I love this this phrase. This is a twofer that will equip and empower you to support and teach the whole child, where we're looking at how does caring for that person as a human really honor every part of them, mind, body, spirit. So Dr. Myrie, I want you to take the mic from me, please. And just, we've had so many rich discussions about these questions of who, what, when, where, why, and how. I would just love to hear some of your perspectives on, the who, starting with that. Okay. And then we'll kind of go through these. Yeah.
All right. Can you put the,
oh,
because I don't see it on my screen again.
There we go.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. I also have a special education background, was a special ed teacher for 18 years. And so now I'm a teacher educator. And so, working in that field, it gives you the flexibility to work with pretty much all ages, so I've had the pleasure of teaching anywhere from kindergarten, now to university students. So now here we're talking about post-secondary preparation. And who are we talking about? So we're looking at students that are in their secondary years, probably starting from about 14 years old going up, all the way to those that are maybe in their first year of employment, or maybe first year of college, because those are, the ages where they're transitioning into adulthood. We're kind of weaning them off from, the school system. But if you don't have children or students that are in that age group, please don't worry, because some of the things that we're going to talk about are really important to introduce our students earlier on. But students are involved, and of course, family members are a very big part of the post-secondary preparation. The teachers, there are things that we need to do at school to prepare the students. The community is part of this as well. The employers who are going to provide internships or maybe work study or send us guest speakers to talk about, the different careers out there, because exposure is very important. And also, community members who else in the community might have supports that our students, can benefit from. So you can see that, there are different layers that are involved to support the student. They're in the middle, but we have the school community, and then of course we have the outside community, and of course we have the family there as well. Danny, did you want to add something? Looks like you're going to add something.
Yeah, no, I was just kind of reverberating on what you were saying, that there is this whole host of people around a child as they go through their education. But really, they're the first on the list. It's that student, and it's going to look different for everybody. So we can't, as teachers, have a one-size-fits-all plan, of course, and that is just something that we have to remember. We don't have to take everything on ourselves as teachers, and the same thing as parents, the same things as employers. One of the most difficult things is to trust that somebody can kind of take that torch, and somebody can really step in fully into a role. But if we don't give somebody a chance, then it's not gonna happen. So the most important person to pass that torch to is going to be the student, and allowing that AAA of their aspirations. That's kind of what's driving this post-secondary plan. And then their access. This is where, the access, we can really look to other community members, and then the agency is going to be them stepping into the world and being an active part of that community. So back to you, Dr. Myrie.
Yes. Okay. So what are we going to do as part of the preparation? We definitely want to give them the skills to be able, once they leave us the school, school system, to be able to feel comfortable in an inclusive work environment, or inclusive if they're in a college setting, that might look bigger than where they have been in the previous years of school. So we want to, do they have the communication skills? Do they have the social skills? Do they have the self-determination skills to be able to advocate for themselves? So this is where the school comes in. There are things that a teacher should do to be able to prepare the student to be ready to interact with employers, or go on to accommodate, ask for the accommodations or in a university setting, because all of those things, if they know how to access the services that they need, if they know how to advocate themselves, for their accommodations or modifications, that might support their academics as well. Do they know what their strengths are? Do they know what their needs are? So self-awareness is very important. Do they know how to regulate their emotions? All those things are very important. Do they know how to set goals? Where to get the resources? Where do I get the supports if I need this? So this is where we come in as educators to provide them with those skills. And of course, parents as well are a very important part of this, because parents, they know their children, what their strengths are, what their interests are. It's a career that, might interest my child, because I know that, they like to do these particular activities. We want to make sure that we support them, like, Danny said, with the access and agency and aspirations in something that they have the strength and interest in already. Go ahead, Danny, if you want to add something.
Yeah, just one brief comment, and then I'll pass it back to you for the next question. Support network. I was just thinking about that phrase. And as we go through education, that first word is really important and critical. And that's thinking of the accommodations, modifications, that whole plan. But then just thinking about the world of work for everybody, the second word is the most important: network. Your network is your net worth, is something I hear a lot in the business community. And when we're thinking of this support network, it has to be scaffolded. It has to be scaffolded in a way that once we transition into this post-secondary life, that network is still thriving. And then we're moving on to the question of where. Like, where does this take place? Yeah, right?
Yeah, you can go ahead and start on that, and I'll come in.
Yeah. Well, and so I think it's really important to think in a limitless way in this where, because a lot of times when we're marching down that K-12 pathway, we're looking at where is the student going to be? Where do they want to be? That's the aspiration. And then the closer we get, I think this is for all students, the closer we get to graduation, the more panic starts to maybe set in of, what does this look like? Where am I going? And so looking at where they are going, are they going to have that support? Are they going to have the accommodations, the modifications, and then the resources? And I think within that movement from aspiration through access and then agency, having the agency to look for resources is one of the things that as educators we can really model a lot and that's we'll get into this in the next question of the when do we start all this work, but finding resources is something that we just want to make sure we're not only doing for and with families and with students, but we're doing with them, so that they're practicing these networking skills, these soft skills that are so important to have, And as the 21st century workforce is getting a lot more complicated and complex, as our digital natives are aging up to the workforce, it is even more critical to have these modeling of how do we talk to people in certain situations? How do we handle stress and pressure? And where do we go to get help? So that's over to you, Dr. Myrie, on the where.
Yes. So if we are in a school setting, as educators, I mentioned self-determination skills, empowering our students with those skills, because Danny, with self-determination skills, they're very critical. We include the students in making the decisions about their lives. We encourage the students to really be self-aware, understand yourself. What are my limitations? What are my strengths? And if I have a weakness here, I need help. How do I go about seeking for that help? Setting goals, okay? Am I setting realistic goals? Are these goals that support where I want to be? So those are, the type of skills that we can help them with in the school setting. So now, how to navigate challenges, how to communicate effectively, how to seek accommodations. So that's something that we can practice in the school setting as well. I think that if we are developing these skills with them, we encourage them to take ownership of their lives, be part of the problem solving of what do I want to be when I grow up and what do I need to do. They're also becoming, that also helps them academically as well. This is not about them. This is part of, I am part of this, so it supports their, academic success as well, because then they really take ownership of the learning. They understand, the why of that. And also, Danny, I know you were going to add something, so I'll let you add it in just a moment. But I think an example that I want to throw out in a classroom situation, we can encourage students to identify and express their needs and strengths. We can have those conversations with them in the classroom. Just encourage them to make decisions, take chances. It's in a safe environment. So all of that are examples of how we can embed those. We don't have to teach them separately. We can if we want to, but we can also embed those within the curriculum in the subjects that we're teaching. Well, okay, we have this assignment that is coming up. So how can we set goals to make sure that we have this met by the deadline? Involve them in those conversations. Well, is this realistic to break up this long-term project in this way? They need to be part of it. They need to evaluate their own progress as well. When we're giving assessments, it's not just for me as the teacher, it's also for the student to reflect and say, okay, you know what, maybe I need to work more in this area. I think that I need help in this. So what can I do? So all of those are skills that we can encourage, for the students to develop. And that's why I said that some of these things, even though we're talking about post-secondary, we can start infusing a lot of these skills as early as possible. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that just gave me goosebumps. Actually, I've never heard it articulated like that before. Like the part of where, just knowing that the baseline is you're in a safe environment, you're in a safe place, and that I always go to neuroscience, but that's that kind of level one binary code going off in our brains. Am I safe? Yes. Am I safe? Yes. Am I safe? Yes. Am I safe? No. What changed? That it's orienting ourselves to that environment. But if we can get this practice of I am in a safe place and here is why, and I love that thought. And you're absolutely right. That was a great segue into the next one, which is when? When do we start this work? And you mentioned that we start early. I just, to that, I wanted to add, we have to revise it regularly, that plan, because, if we were to add that question of not only what do you want to be where you grow up, but where do you want to be, that will change over time. And so we just need to make room for that as an educational team surrounding this student. So back over to you, Dr. Myrie, on the when.
Yes. Yes, basically, I'm just going to reinforce what you had mentioned. We don't have to wait until students are in high school with the preparation. We can start as early as possible, giving them the agency to be part of the decision making as well. So as early as possible, we can start developing those self-determination skills. And I like how you said, encouraging kids in a safe environment. And so, that's something I wanted to talk about. That's one of the reasons why I really support social emotional learning. Because I really think that if we have that social emotional learning kind of environment, that is where students feel safe to take chances. So we are promoting students to self-regulate, to be resilient, to have empathy, develop interpersonal skills, and all those skills, are crucial as students face, challenges in diverse environments outside of, the school or their parents' home, when they're out there in the community, when they go into work. Those skills are important, but if we've been working with those students in those kinds of environments, we're promoting, those types of, learning, social emotional learning, we are helping the students manage emotions. Are they going to need that when they're adults? Yes, they're going to. How to respond to stress constructively. How to build resilience needed to adapt and to thrive, and how to communicate effectively, how to form positive relationships, engaging meaningfully with peers and instructors, mentors in post-secondary settings. What does that look like? So these are things that we can help the students develop. And you can see how even parents at home, can do, the same as well. Just encouraging the students to, build those skills, how to collaborate, how to communicate, how to ask for help, how to deal with stress. All of those things are not things that, can only be done at school. They can also be, of course, be reinforced at home as well. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's just, you so beautifully went right into the why. Why are we talking about this? Why are we doing this? And the biggest why is really the quality of life that we can all have. And we want the best possible chances, and well, not chances, the best possible opportunities for our students, for our children, for the makers of our new workforce, for the creators of our new communities. It's so important to invest. That's our why, but the big why is following that aspiration and taking a student-centered approach where that student really is like the nucleus. They're thinking the atomic structure of a community. They're the nucleus. They are the most important thing that is in their life, and they have all of these different opportunities orbiting around them. They have all these different caretakers and stakeholders. And if you just go out even another step, every single person in this community has all of these orbits. So we have a lot of these systems that kind of go in and out of each other. And that's why it's so important to keep checking in on the aspiration that is driving their life, on the access that they have to getting the things they need to succeed. And then finally, the agency to have the courage and the strength to go on to what they want to do and what brings them, what increases their net joy. And so there's a lot of hows, and that's where we're actually going to turn to this discussion. In talking about these hows, how do we make this reality? How do we make this a dream come true? Of course, there's legal considerations. There can be legislation, but in the highest form of inclusion, it's really going to take those bottom two: conversation and collaboration. So it really is so important that we're having this discussion. And what an honor for us to be, kind of tapering off this first discussion in this format, this conversation. And I can't wait for the collaboration that will come out of it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so I can see everybody. It's kind of weirding me out that I can, oh no, how do I even do that? I'll figure this out, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. And, we got to learn a few things, and I took down some notes. So my first note is regarding your reference to Maslow's and Bloom's theories in education. You had mentioned that Maslow's theory focused on the whole child's needs and Bloom's on the skills and knowledge they need to learn. So how can educators support both the basic needs and higher learning skills of students with disabilities to help them succeed in life after school? So how can they balance these theories in application?
Yeah, that is a meaty question, and I love it. So I guess I have some initial thoughts, and then we can kind of go back and forth. But I think it really is this universal design to education, and in creating environments, and that's what we can do as teachers to create that safe place. And that's it's going to give me goosebumps every time I think about it, Dr. Myrie. Like, I am in a safe place. If we can get our students saying that every day, that's probably the first step in universal design. And that is the baseline for Maslow is I am physically safe. I have my physical needs being met, and I can relax. That's the only way to get to that second level, where we can now start to gain context and understand the world around us and orient ourselves. So that's very much that level one. Level two is orientation to it. And that's where Bloom's really comes in, and understanding. Can I understand this? That's a baseline. Do I have access to it? First of all, then do I understand it? And I think they work together hand in hand, in tandem from there. If we create a safe space and we give students information that they can start to understand and then to analyze. And I think in today's classrooms, we really need to focus on, when you see information, what are some steps you can take to just say, like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but Rotary has a really good approach to that. And I would love to hear what that is, but it's like, is it helpful? Is it true? Those lines, you being able to question that and then create something. So I'll yield the mic there. But Dr. Myrie, I'm curious what are your thoughts?
Well, you made a really good point, that the safety, having the classroom, feeling that you are safe in your environment, you can take risks, that's very important. But I also love what you mentioned about giving students the skills to discern what they need, what knowledge they need. Now, this generation, the young students, there's just so much information, out there. And so, Danny, you say, is it helpful? Is it needed? So giving kids that skill that, what is it that I need to focus on that is going to support me, that is going to help me, with my learning or with achieving, this particular goal, that's something we really have to help students with. It's not easy being a child nowadays. I mean, there's just so much information out there. It is, which it's a good thing, but then it can also be, very overwhelming as well. And so just, giving them the skills to discern and modeling that as well. We can do that as teachers.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that response. So I did notice you also talked a little bit about self-determination and person-centered approaches. They're actually, a couple of my favorite topics. So because those are just dear to my heart. So I'm going to ask you a few questions regarding self-determination as advocates. So as disability advocates, we know how essential it is to thoroughly understand a child before developing their individual education plan. So does this approach also apply to creating a person-centered plan? And could you provide a brief comparison or an example, a practical example between an individual education plan and a person-centered plan for students with disabilities who are planning to maybe the part of their aspiration is to maybe, it's possible become a doctor or lawyer or even hone their business?
They actually go together. In my opinion, of course, when we're talking about the IEP, we're talking about when they are in school with us, right? When they're in, the K through 12 school, that is during that, those are the years when they're getting the individualized education plan, just in case some, I guess, might not be familiar with the acronym. So with that, we're looking at, the goals on the IEP. There could be academic goals, there could be behavior goals, there could be speech goals, depending on the child's disability. Now, when that child is in high school, starting at the age of 14, then we add on more. We have the transition, goals, the transition IEP to go with that as well. But when we're talking about the person-centered approach, as that is more towards the career part. What is it that I want to do? We have taken care of the academics when we had the child, when we were providing that IEP, we were doing that. But, if a child wants to be a doctor, of course, they're going to need the skills academically to be able to, take the ACTs or get into college or, whatever it is, career that they're aspiring to. So what is done early is going to lead to, that aspiration later on. But even within that high school, if the child has said, well, I really want to be a doctor, then when we are working on that transition plan, our goals we should be talking to that student about what it takes to become a doctor. What subjects, what kind of grades should you have, and maybe providing them, exposure, the career assessment. I know that some schools are really good about, having guest speakers, from different careers come to talk at their schools. Sometimes they might have mentors, career guidance. School counselors are very good at this. Job shadowing. So if a child is wanting to be a vet or a child is wanting to be a doctor, so those would be the kind of agencies, the kind of organizations that we would be collaborating with from the school. We would be collaborating with to provide our students opportunities to go and get exposure in those areas. And this is where the community part comes in. It's not just about the school only, but the community plays a very big part of it, because we need their supports in situations like I mentioned.
Thank you. Would you like to add to that, Dan?
Yeah, just a couple of things, and I think you're absolutely right, Dr. Myrie, that they do go hand in hand, and it's that consideration of what is the student's will and their aspiration that's guiding it. I think a couple things we can do, just thinking of like that how again, when we come to an IEP meeting, it can often, well, maybe not often, but just sometimes it can get a little contentious, and there's so many legal conversations to be had and so many agreements that are being made that it can become very quickly polarizing, and we kind of lose sense of the possibilities in alignment with the aspiration, you know. And I think you know, this just something that popped in my head. If we mix it in with this, the student saying, "I'm in a safe place," you know, whatever, and just we make that assumption that, hey, this is possible. Let's work at it. We're gonna have to have resilience. You know, we're gonna have to, you know you're in a safe place, know you belong, but it might get a little hard sometimes. And I think when we attend to those pieces all together as a team, and we turn this IEP meeting and these plans, and we turn the documents into a celebration of their strengths over, you know, here's some agreement after agreement after agreement, and then we start, you know, like looking at the minutia of things. And, you know, I guess additionally is in data tracking. I love data. That's one of the things I love best about being a special education teacher, is the ways that we can take in and represent data in meaningful ways. And when we give that data to the student, that is eye-opening. When we don't have just, you know, take it upon ourselves to manage all this data, but instead we partner with the students and their whole IEP team to, you know, collaborate on collecting data, on analyzing it, on then aligning that with what those aspirations are. There's power in that has empirical evidence. And that's where I think it's really important to start thinking of that collaboration and that team meeting as a celebration. It's like a birthday. You know, guess what? Your plan's one more year old. How exciting. What have you done? Tell us about it. And then we have the student present it. So student-led IEPs are a really good way to practice that in real time.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much. Which brings me, and I'm looking at our time, which brings me to the subject of collaboration, building strong support networks for the population that we're discussing. What do you think, or how can families, teachers, you know, educators, job coaches, even employers, how can they work together effectively to support students that are transitioning from secondary school, which is commonly referred to in the United States as high school? How, you know, I guess, how can they come together as a team to help them to transition from school to work, or even from school to university, college, or vocational settings?
All right. I can start, and then you know, you can add to that, Danny. So for sure, when they're in school, we definitely need to have them at the table at the IEP meeting. Definitely, you know, they are part of developing that IEP. You know, and I mentioned early, you know, there's certain things that, you know, we might not know about their child. They know their child, they know their child's interests, and that can help us with supporting their child as they work towards, you know, their aspirations. You know, we don't know at school if somebody might, you know, likes animals or is a hunter. We don't know those kind of things necessarily, but, you know, once we know, then we can discuss about, oh, you know, what about, you know, this field and this field, and, you know, those. So like Danny said, those are things that can help us build conversations. I say, you know, informal interviews, you know, about what, you know, careers they're interested in, and setting realistic goals, and, you know, what their strengths are. You know, all of those are important to get the child to make realistic goals about, you know, their aspirations, and, you know, what they want to do when they grow up, where they want to go to college. We need to be having those conversations with them when they're in high school. You know, you had an IEP when you were K through 12, okay. When you go to university, you are going to need to advocate, you're going to need to self-disclose. You're not just going to automatically have your accommodations provided to you by your professors. You need to make sure that you have, self-disclose that, because sometimes we see that gap as well, where a student did not, disclose. So then they did not get their accommodations. And then, a student might be, struggling, and, they might even decide that they don't want to pursue their education because they were not, they didn't get the accommodation. Now, had it been where they had actually, known what to do, then they would have, approached a lot of universities have disability services. They would have, approached them and, talked about or given any kind of documentation to show that they needed accommodations, and just parents can also be a part of this, just explaining to the students that, this is nothing to be ashamed of. This is, what supports you, and, if it's going to help you and it's very confidential, it's all right to continue with getting your support in a university setting. So that's one way. Danny, did you want to add other?
Yeah, just what came to mind is that the distance between dreams and reality is how. So we can give low stakes practice, and that is what can curb a lot of these moments that maybe happen in middle school and high school as people are just deciding who they are as a person. If somebody has a dream to do something, start giving them low stakes practice at that as soon as humanly possible. And then, you're asking them why before they ask you why. Why am I learning this? Well, because you have to. Instead, you say, hey, why are you interested in this? Well, here's why. Oh, guess what? Well, here's a connection to what you need to learn. So it really, it's low stakes practice that gives us the data that they can take ownership of. Here's an example. If somebody wants to be in the service industry, but say they are blind, then the first thing we would do is investigate that environment, create that safe space and have experiences from the customer's end. And then talk about, okay, well, later we'll interview a manager and tell me about what things look like and what are the patterns of traffic and things like that. And then we have maybe an internship that can allow the student to, being blind, still have access to that environment. So we've gone from aspiration to access. And then our agency is, hey, I'm going to apply for a job. I have enough confidence and I want to be a server in this restaurant. So that's, just kind of moving through the whole process. It takes low stakes practice to get us to those high stakes moments.
Great. Thank you so much. I have two more questions, and I have to think globally now because, as you all know, we have a global audience, okay? So my first question is going back again to the transition plans. I know you already addressed the IEPs, and I'm sure other countries probably refer to it as something different, okay? So I'm thinking transition plans now, all right? So how, as disability advocates or disability educators, my question is regarding challenges. Navigating life can be challenging sometimes, as you know, for us and even people with diverse needs, specifically people with disabilities. So as such, with this thought, how can global educators and advocates assist students with disabilities in navigating the challenges of transitioning into adulthood and planning for life post-secondary education? Because as you all know, the moment you hit that number 18, you're an adult now. So how can we help them to navigate that? those challenges? How can educators help them, or disability advocates?
All right. So I can, start, and
Yeah,
if you don't mind, and yeah,
absolutely. Go for it. It's a good rhythm.
yeah, I think that leveraging the resources in the community is one way. Danny had talked about, low stakes practice, and exposure. If we're in a country and there's a hospital close by, there's a police station, there's some type of office where they have, secretaries or lawyers, those can be our guest speakers that we invite to the school to talk about, this is the kind of work I do as a nurse. This is what I had to do to get to this. And this is a day in the life of a nurse. These are the kind of things that I use, even bringing the equipment, stethoscope or whatever it is. That exposure is important, because we know that in some places, students might only have access to just their teachers. So they are exposed to what teachers do. But we know that we need to have as much exposure for them as possible. So looking into the community and see what resources are in the area.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a hospital, they can, we can ask them to come to the school, like I said, and and talk about that. That is an opportunity for students to ask questions and learn about that field. Job shadowing. They can do that as well. We can also, practicing, we can do mock interviews as well. Those are some of the things that we can do at the school. How to fill out an application. If I need help, how do I access help? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What kind of careers seem to kind of match up with what I am really good at? And where do I find information for that? Is it in the library? It might need to go on the computer. Those are some of the things that we can do within the resources that we have. And of course, each country varies with what they have. But those things can be done. But on a school level, I think that teachers can foster self-determination skills. And I'm going to keep on, going, to this, because I really think that that's important. These are skills that are transferable. They can support children how to set goals, how to make choices, how problem-solving, skills, how to communicate, how to advocate, and embed those skills in the lessons as well. Those things are going to help children develop independence and know how they need to, approach, people, approach organizations, if they need help with getting employment, or if they need to learn more about that field, how to network. So those are some of the things that we can do. And of course, supporting them academically, because academic skills are going to help with the different jobs that they're going to. So supporting them academically, but also embedding the skills that I had talked about as well.
Yeah, just a quick comment on the end of that is that I think you nailed it, Dr. Myrie, that coming back to discernment of the resources around you, because I know that looks different for everyone, every school district, every country, every family, every community. The resources are going to look different. So you look at that alignment, and then I think one way that we can really look at this in early childhood and the kindergarten level is embracing wonder, because you get to present, here are the resources around us. What do you wonder? I wonder what I could do with this, and then leave it to the child to explore, because that natural wonder and curiosity is often silenced as we go through life, just becoming an adult, as we navigate these systems. And so that's a way that if we keep coming back to wonder and curiosity, that the student-centered learning will always be at the heart of it.
Great. So I just wish we can keep this conversation
I
going.
know, this is great.
I have to ask this one last question because I think it's very important to our audience. Is regarding the role of our government. So what types of support can governments in different countries provide to help students with disabilities who are interested in, attending college, universities, or vocational school? Government should have their role, right?
Yes. Yes.
Then
yes.
Do you have any what resources out there? It
right.
could be financial resources, it could be some kind of wraparound services to ensure that the population with special needs or disabilities are well supported.
Yeah, and I can just add a comment or two to that, Dr. Aderonke. Teacher education is one of them as well. I would say that it depends on the country. Like we mentioned, there are some countries where they provide teacher training. They prepare teachers as well to know about disabilities and how to teach students with disabilities, about inclusive education and about special education practices. Well, we know that there's a shortage. We do know that is the reality of it. But if we have within our teacher training, if we have trained teachers to teach students with disability, those can be a resource as well when they go into the other schools. I say a special educator, somebody who is trained in that, they're not just a resource for the student, they're also a resource for the other educators. So, head teachers, principals, headmasters, whatever you call it, I think that they should leverage the skill set that somebody that has a special education training has. Encourage them, empower them to also share their expertise. Because then that will also, their peers who might not have had that training will also learn from them. And, these skills, help all children, not just, with disabilities. So, that's one thing that I think that governments can do is that within their teacher training, also make sure that, teachers are being trained to teach students with disabilities. It might not be everyone that needs to be trained in that, but, to provide instruction, to provide preparation for teachers who also, are trained in disabilities, so that when they go into the field, when they go into the jobs, they can support children. But as I said, they can also support, their peers as well with the skills that they bring.
All right. Thank you so much. Good points.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think the side of parents too. I think parent and community trainings and employer trainings is also something the government can really do, because this is honestly where a major gap is. And that's resources like neurodiversitynetwork.net that I showed. There's a lot of those types of resources out there, but it comes down to communication and collaboration, where being able to have the governments provide these resources that can then create systems. So I think it's just looking from a budgetary perspective, using the investment of the budget that is available to create self-sustaining systems, and whatever mechanisms need to be put in place for that. I think that's where managing the assets and the budgets to support education, like Dr. Myrie was saying, continued teacher professional learning education, parent education, employer education, training, sharing of resources, allowing for maybe even tax implications of sharing resources and being able to combine with community mindedness. How can we create these systems together to support the community, the whole community, every single person?
Great. Thank you so much. We can keep going if they give us 24
Yeah, I've got
hours.
another 4 hours. And
we see Jeremy here. So, thank you so much again. As we wrap up today's discussion, I would like to thank our outstanding panelists, Dr. Myrie and Daniel, for sharing valuable insights and experiences regarding this topic. It is clear that preparing students for life after secondary education is very important. It requires collaboration, innovative thinking, person-centered thinking, student-centered thinking, self-determination, strong resources, support from families and communities, even the governments, since these are key elements in promoting inclusion. I just want to say thank you again, and thank you to our audience for joining this important conversation. Let's stay connected. Let's keep working together to promote inclusive education. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great one.